Introducing the Action Network's NFL Luck Rankings. Our Luck Rankings grade teams based off something we call luck percentage, representing the win probability swing between a team's on-field performance and their actual winning percentage. So, if a team has been far more unlucky than a team they are facing, it's possible odds makers and the public aren't adjusting enough for this, meaning there's betting value on the unluckier team to cover the spread. So be sure to check out our NFL Luck Rankings every week, only on the Action Network.
And here to join me now, the beautiful mind behind the Luck Rankings, Nick Giffen here. Nick, I want to ask you, right, we talk about Luck Rankings, and most of the time that's a week-to-week change based on how teams are performing based on previous games. But I do want to know, obviously we're talking about this season right now. How much do you account for previous luck rankings when looking at this season, whether it's a futures or even, week 1 or 2 type games?
Yeah, and it's pretty tough. And I would say the short answer is it depends. The longer answer is, I think it depends on the stability of the team. Teams that, have a more stable roster, the same coaches returning, I think you can rely on last year's data a little bit more heavily because it's a lot more similar to what's going on this year with the team. So I think that's one thing you got to look at. Flip side, there's the teams that have less stability. I'll use my Washington Commanders, for example, right? Drafted a young quarterback. They change in coaches all around. So a lot of roster turnover, coaching turnover. I don't think we can really rely on last year's data with a totally different quarterback and a totally different set of coaches for Washington to kind of evaluate them. So in this case, we're really evaluating them on their current talent based off what they've done in the offseason and how their coaches, their new coaches, can use that talent.
Right, and that makes sense. And there's a lot that's going to go into each team in particular. I appreciate that you say that. And let's look at, the luckiest, unluckiest teams as far as schedule goes, because obviously we can't talk about week 1 matchups and who's been lucky and not because we haven't seen any gameplay yet. Yeah. But you can look based on last year's data to then talk about who, in fact, drew a lucky schedule. And you're going to focus on 3 teams in particular. Please tell me the 3 luckiest.
Yeah, so real quick first, I definitely want to separate luck schedule from strength of schedule, because a team can have a very hard schedule and we're still saying they're having a lucky schedule based off the luck rankings. And that's the case here with our number 1 team, the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens do draw the luckiest schedule in terms of opponents' 2023 luck rankings. Now, the Ravens do have a hard schedule. They rank 6th in terms of difficulty in schedule per Sean Kerner's strength of schedule rankings. So while they have a hard schedule, it may play out a little bit easier than that 6th rated toughest schedule thanks to the luck factor. And that's because they have 8 games against last year's 6 luckiest teams. And when we think about that, lucky teams should tend to regress back to neutral luck over time, which means they probably won more than expected. And we know the luck rankings perform well on sides and totals and things like that. So the market itself is probably overvaluing the Ravens schedule. So the Ravens schedule, even though it was very tough and it ranked 6th, might actually end up playing out a little bit easier because 8 games against last year's 6 luckiest teams and 2 games only against the bottom 10 teams in luck. So they avoid a lot of the unlucky teams from last year as well.
I think it is interesting, right? Like when you talk about the teams in particular, the top of the notch, they're going to get a quote-unquote maybe luckier schedule because they're facing teams that won a lot more. They don't get the benefit of facing unlucky teams in the bottom of the standings because, winning your division, you end up drawing the number 1 seed in particular. But there are 2 other teams in particular that also drew luck as far as the top 3 go. Tell me more about them.
Yeah, so number 2, Dallas Cowboys, their luck percentage average is 2.8, positive 2.8%. So on average, the team's luck percent last year was 2.8%. The Cowboys have the 17th toughest schedule per strength of schedule ranking. Again, like Baltimore, may end up being a little bit easier thanks to luck. They played 9 games against last year's 8 luckiest teams. So again, a lot of room for regression on those lucky teams there that they're facing. 4 of those games are against division rivals, Philadelphia, New York Giants. Remember, Philadelphia was always like 1st or 2nd in the luck rankings last year. Plus, by virtue of the Cowboys winning their division, they get to play division winners Tampa Bay and Detroit, who are also inside the top 8 in our luck rankings. The NFC East this year also crosses over with the AFC North, where last year's #1 lucky team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, reside, as well as Cincinnati, who ended up 5th in the luck ranking. So a lot of lucky games here for the Cowboys. And a little bit of that is offset by facing the NFC South, where they face Atlanta, Carolina, and New Orleans, who all ended up bottom 5 in luck. And then the third luckiest team is the Cleveland Browns. They have the third toughest schedule overall for raw strength of schedule, like market power ratings that Sean Kerner uses. So they'll definitely need all the luck edge they can get. They're in the same division as the Ravens, so we definitely expect a lot of those similar opponents, which is why we see both of them inside the top 3 in luck schedules. Again, facing Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, 4 games right there against top 5 luck teams. Also crossing over with the NFC East, so Philly and New York Giants that we've talked about in terms of Dallas's schedule as well. So Cleveland Browns, a +2 luck percentage, get the third luckiest schedule of 2024.
Seeing the Dallas Cowboys did not make me feel better about me thinking that they're a great team to fade this season, just based on luck. And obviously, we talk about it, a lot more changes year over year. They did get the #1 seed or in their division, so they're going to get better teams that were quote unquote luckier. I do like their under just overall. Me and Evan Abrams were going off on that. But of course, with lucky teams, and you mentioned the Ravens, Cowboys, Browns, the top 3 luckiest schedules in terms of the luck rankings, there are unlucky teams as well. So what 3, and I guess you could start with the first one in particular, drew the toughest schedule according to the luck rankings?
Yeah, the third unluckiest schedule is the Seattle Seahawks. I'm wearing their jersey right now. I'll just throw Arizona as the second unluckiest schedule as well, because both of them are in the NFC West. So this really applies to both teams. But the NFC West plays the NFC North. So they get games against Chicago, Minnesota, who are bottom 6 in luck. San Francisco was a unlucky team last year. That's their division rival. And, you mentioned division winners tend to be lucky. San Francisco is actually an unlucky division winner. They should have won even more games than they did. So definitely some toughness there. San Francisco could be even potentially a little undervalued by the market just off the luck factor. So overall, Seattle has 7 games against bottom 10 teams in the 2023 luck rankings and just 2 against top 10 luck teams, none in the top 5. As far as Arizona is concerned, they get 8 games against bottom 10 luck teams. And on the flip side, they get 3 games against top 10 lucky teams. But again, like Seattle, none against top 5 lucky teams. So Arizona and Seattle, both with relatively similar unlucky schedules, which leads me to the unluckiest schedule of the 2024 NFL season, and that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Their luck percentage, opponent's luck percentage, I should say, averages -3.7%. If you multiply that by 17 games, that's close to an extra win that these teams should have had last year that they did not have. Last year, Tampa Bay ended up 3rd in our luck rankings. The part of the reason for that was, New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina. They get 6 games against those teams, and all 3 of those teams in their division were in the bottom 5 of our luck rankings, including Carolina and New Orleans, who made up our bottom 2. So certainly the division stuff there for Tampa Bay is a big part of it. But even just overall, 12 of their 17 games come against teams that were in the bottom half of our luck rankings last year. So definitely a pretty rough schedule for Tampa Bay if we're going to talk about some regression.
Yeah, and let's talk about some regression. Obviously, you're coming in here, you're breaking down the luck rankings, the luck schedules, you're making things a lot easier to understand, which, by the way, if you want to know more about just not the top 3 luckiest and unluckiest teams, Nick does have an article on the Action Network breaking down the schedule and what teams drew luck. But let's talk about a pick for this series, or not series, season. Your favorite future, you put it in the app today. I'm so on board with this. I ended up joining you. I ate the juice on a higher number on wins, but in particular, you're fading the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this season and expecting that luck to strike.
Yeah, absolutely. I took Tampa Bay under 7.5 wins, +125, +130 out there. If you got a +122, I still like that. Last year, again, I mentioned Tampa Bay ended up number 3 in our luck rankings. They played more like a 6.8 win team, despite ending up with that 9-8 record. And a lot of that, again, was luck. But luck in a lot of different ways. The Buccaneers actually had a lot of injury luck as well. Per FTN, they ranked 10th in terms of fewest adjusted games lost. But I think even more crucially, pretty much all their key players were healthy, especially on offense. Baker played all 17. Mike Evans, Godwin, Kate Otten, they all played all 17 games. Rashad White. So really the only key, like I shouldn't say key player, but the only starter that missed any time was guard Aaron Stinney, and he's arguably their worst offensive lineman. So, and he's not even with the team this year. So they had a lot of injury luck, and even on defense, their best players tended to play all 17 games. Although they did have some injuries on defense, it didn't come to their All-Pro players. So a lot of injury luck there for Tampa Bay. Turnover luck as well. Baker Mayfield, this is interesting, had the highest gap between turnover-worthy plays and actual turnovers committed. So he was getting really lucky that those turnover-worthy plays didn't end up costing them the ball as much as it should have. And then we talked scoring luck. Tampa Bay outscored their expectation, and defensively, teams didn't score against them as much as they should have. And a lot of that was them forcing more field goals than expected. They should have allowed more touchdowns, but they ended up forcing more field goals than expected. And then those kickers missed all those field goals. They had, I think, the third best kicking luck in terms of field goals in the NFL, right? You're not controlling what your opponent's kickers are doing. So that's just pure luck right there. And then, of course, we talk about the schedule luck. Unluckiest schedule this year for Tampa Bay. So definitely expecting a lot of regression here. If Baker gets hurt, that's rough for them. Kyle Trask is their backup. He's in a battle with John Wolford. John Wolford for the backup quarterback spot here. So, it's not looking great if something happens to Baker. New offensive coordinator, that'll potentially change the play calling. And, Baker's coming off a career year. We probably can't expect a repeat of that. So I love Tampa Bay under 7.5 wins.
Yeah, I ate the juice. I took the minus 165. I played it safe. I took the under 8.5 wins. I don't see any world where they end up above 500 here. And just going further than that, we talked about how maybe the teams that drew the luckiest schedule because they played the better teams because they got the number one seed. Tampa Bay is the number one team, yet they are the unluckiest team schedule-wise. Obviously, a lot of that comes from the division. We expect positives to come from all three of those teams in the division. But yeah, you look at their schedule, it's a gauntlet, an absolute gauntlet of every team in the NFC they have to go through. And you mentioned it. Can we really trust Baker Mayfield to not make these turnover-worthy plays and to have another career year? I mean, we've seen him for, such a long time make so many mistakes. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, definitely a team to fade. And I like the Panthers over, too. That's just me trying to, pair both. If you're going to like the Buccaneers under, you might like the Panthers over as well. But
exactly. And Buccaneers to finish bottom of the division, right?
Right.
I mean, if you're the lucky team and all three of the other teams are unlucky, they're plus 475 to finish bottom of NFC South, I think is very much in play.
I think you can get crazy with this division. I think a lot of options can come out of it. But Tampa Bay Buccaneers in particular, I don't think they're that much better. In fact, I think they're right around every single team in that division. But Nick Giffen, thank you so much for coming on and breaking down the luck rankings. Obviously, check out the Action Network for more information on these in case you want some more. But thanks, Nick.
Anytime.